Okay, so we're gonna close this out. We're gonna have a panel and a discussion here with just a few of our close friends this afternoon with you all. And the topic fits the theme of what we're all here about today, and that is the rising power and influence of the Latino community when it comes to consumerism. So joining me on stage this afternoon, I have 4 distinguished guests from organizations that really understand this. This is a combination of global and national organizations, and quite frankly, organizations that have a leadership position, not just in the marketplace, but also on this topic of diversity and inclusion. So I've got Carl, Gary, Doug, and Tom here with me today. So first of all, I'd like each of you to just take 30 minutes to introduce yourselves to the audience before we get started. I know we have the bios, but from in your own words, 30 seconds, who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Doug Schulman. I'm on the executive committee of BNY Mellon, run global client service delivery and our middle office outsourcing business. So my career, I've been an entrepreneur. I was vice chairman of NASD when we owned stock markets, so I was president of markets and information. I then did a stint in the government, actually running the IRS, and then spent time at McKinsey. So happy to be here.
Great. Gary?
Good afternoon. I'm Gary Fair. I'm a long-term Johnson & Johnson employee. I'm currently the head of the Internal Audit and Investigations organization at J&J, but in past lives I've been the CFO of a number of Johnson & Johnson companies. Chances are if you've worn a contact lens or used baby shampoo or had stitches or surgery or a pharmaceutical, you're taking one of my company's products. Nice to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Governor. I'm going to maybe have a little fun with this one and tell you 2 things that define my past. How about any Gators in the house? University of Florida Gators? Go Gators! And how about the most rambunctious, the prettiest, and the best Latinos, and yes, I'm biased, any Venezolanos in the house? Yeah! So Venezuela is the only country that takes beauty as a team sport. It's true. So I started my career at Arthur Young, which became Ernst & Young, and I was there for about 12 years. Eventually became an entrepreneur, was an entrepreneur for about 5 years. Went into corporate IT. Today I run information technology at Northwestern Mutual. And it's great to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Hoff. I've been in technology for 28 years. I'm a senior vice president at State Street. I manage our alternatives, private equity, and real estate technology teams, as well as the Asia Pac and European development teams. I've lived all over the world with State Street and past companies, and worked in startups on up to financial services where I am now.
Great, great. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. So here's what we're going to do for the next few minutes. So we're going to have a conversation, again, with all of our family here about what's going on in the international and national marketplace with the Latina community. We've got a few questions for our panel members. And then we're going to open it up to you. We've got mics around the room, so that if you have any questions or comments for our panel members, we'll leave time for you to do that. Does that sound like a good plan? Okay, so we'll get going. Okay, so the first question I have for the panel members is we've talked about the growing population of the Latina community, both nationally and globally. So can you speak to what this means for your organizations and how are you responding to these global and national challenges? So Gary, I'll give it to you first.
Sure. Thank you. At Johnson & Johnson, we believe that we touch about 1 billion people around the world every day with our goods and services. When you think of us, we have a mission in healthcare to change people's lives and to save people's lives. Along with the multiracial population, Latino population is the fastest growing population in the United States. So if we're going to be successful as a company, we certainly have to be able to tap into markets that represent you know, the growing population of the U.S. More importantly, if our mission is indeed to save lives and change lives, from a real scientific and medicinal point of view, we have to further understand the science behind diseases and disease states and how they hit different ethnicities and different people in how they grew up, the diets that they ate. So if we are to achieve our mission of literally saving people's lives, it is critically important that we tap into the fastest growing population in the U.S. More importantly, though, you know, the days of you turn on a TV and you see a retro 60s show with a bunch of dapper guys, all white, leading company, those days are over. If we are to be successful financially as a company, our management and the way we think absolutely has to mirror not only the United States, but all the nations in which we sell our products.
Great, Gary, thank you. Carl, you want to take a shot at that one?
You know, I see it in two ways. Number one, the talent. Everybody's fighting for talent. And there was a gentleman that spoke earlier talking about, you know, he doesn't have all the ideas, but he doesn't want anybody, or he doesn't want all the ideas to come from people that look like him. I agree with that. And, you know, I can give you one example of a situation that I was in where it was a clear example how diversity did make a difference. This was a situation where we had a system, a technology that we had. We wanted to translate it into another language, and you know, the IT professional came back with an estimate that I just kind of went, "There's no way that it's going to take that much money to translate it." So I reflected on it, went home, and yes, indeed, I was talking to some folks that perhaps didn't have a diverse background. And I came back and said, but hold on a second, isn't this system like multi-language? Yes, but they don't have the language we're looking for. Well, then take the language that exists, German, and let's just translate it to Spanish and go. And the estimate came down by 2 zeros, 2 orders of magnitude down. And that was a direct result of just having diverse thinking.
Yeah.
So it happens in the workforce all the time. I don't want I don't want to surround myself with people that think like me. I support that process.
Yeah.
The other one is the marketplace. We cannot ignore the marketplace we live in, and we want to provide financial security to all families. And when you walk into a kitchen, and it's happened with my dad, when I referred a couple of financial advisors to my dad, he called me back. Oye, pero ¿pa qué? ¿Qué me mandas un gringo? This guy doesn't even,
what did
come
you
on.
just say, by the way?
Yeah. So I indeed found a financial advisor that spoke Spanish, and they clicked, and off they went.
Yeah, you know, and Gary, you mentioned, you know, in healthcare. I tell you, one of the things that I have started to hear, one of the terms I've started to hear more and more in healthcare is cultural competence when it comes to how providers and clinicians serve the communities that they serve, and the importance of that, how important that is to trust. You know, having the patients, in this case, seeing people serve them that they feel like they can relate to. So very, very, very important.
No, you know, it's an interesting comment. You know, a hip that you make for an American is different than a hip that you would make for somebody from an Asian culture with a smaller frame. But even, you know, my growth as a person and my better understanding diversity, one of the things that I learned some time ago is that, you know, a single parent living in the United States where English isn't their first language, or maybe English isn't their language at all, they can go into a store because they have a sick infant, and they can reach for a bottle of infant's Tylenol on the store. And I'm not here doing commercials for Johnson & Johnson, but but I could.
We know that's
You
not
do
what
use
you're doing. We know that's not what you're doing.
But I just happen to have some with me. But the trust that you talk about, companies spend decades and many, many years building that up, and it's important to our consumers.
Yeah. So let's talk about talent a little bit. So, you know, talent, we're all competing for the best talent, not just talent, but the best talent that's out there. So can we talk a little bit about strategies that your organizations are using when it comes to talent? And Doug, I'm going to ask you to start with them, because I understand that at BNY you're using diversity and inclusion to really improve how your people provide customer service. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, BNY Mellon, we do two things. We manage assets and we service assets. And we're global in both, and we're very big in both. We have 1.6 trillion assets under management for managing, and we have over 26 trillion assets that we service. We custody, we do fund administration, we do fund accounting, those kinds of things. We're very focused on this concept of dynamic change in a dynamic changing environment. And I always tell our team that change or driving change and driving innovation is a team sport. This doesn't happen with one person. And one of my early mentors was a woman named Lee Stewart, who told me, early on in my early 20s, like, Doug, you're already on the team, so you don't need yourself on the team again. You actually need people who know things you don't know, can do things you don't know, who can push you, who don't necessarily look like you, and other things. And I think, us servicing customers around the globe, we recognize that we need a diverse workforce in all dimensions. First, all the different kinds of jobs you have at BNY Mellon, whether you're an asset manager, you're an operations professional, you're an analyst, you're in our CFO department. So one, we need people who can engage. We also have to have people who can engage in the culture that they engage in. So whether it's in the US, helping people create financial security, as my fellow panelist was saying, not everybody wants to talk to somebody who speaks English, for instance. In other parts of the globe, we need to have that. We also, we're the oldest financial institution in the U.S. We were actually started by Alexander Hamilton. You were talking about
the Hispanic guy.
Hamilton, and it's I saw the musical Hamilton, which you talked about, which was there's the founding fathers, and then there's the new generation, and there's this hip hop diverse new musical, and we kind of think of ourselves that way, which is we're an old trusted institution, but we're one that now needs to kind of move into the modern age. And so whether it's wrestling with new technology, wrestling with new markets, wrestling with how to make money in the post-financial crisis world, or dealing with a changing demographic both globally who's wrestling with how to manage their assets, or wrestling with the new kind of workforce, we're just targeting. And so we have very specific goals we evaluate. I'm on the executive committee. Part of my balanced scorecard is recruiting and managing a diverse workforce. Part of the balanced scorecard of people, deep down in the organization, it's the same. And so when we're recruiting, we make sure we have, diverse candidate slates. We're focused on this. And it's not, just because we need to make sure that we're diverse and we do the right thing. It's also just a strategic business imperative.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things we're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else on this question? If not, because I want to follow up with something I talked a little bit earlier about. And before I pose this question, can we see a raising of hands of how many millennials are in this audience? If you're born between 1980 and 1995, how many do we have in this audience? Okay, maybe I should have asked how many don't we have in this audience?
What is it, 80 to 95?
From 1980 to 1995. And by the way, we're about to get to the point where the generation after millennials are going to be entering the workforce here pretty soon. So my next question is about the millennials. And as earlier I talked about, they're telling us different things about what they like about work, what they value about the organizations they come to. We're seeing more and more of our young people not self-identifying because they don't want to be identified in one category or cohort, if you like. So can you speak to what your organizations are doing to respond to this change in the workforce? So Tom, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
I think lines are being blurred all over. I know State Street, we've had a focus on bringing technology. I'm a technology manager. Like I said, I have a global team. But our focus has been to blur the lines between business and technology and get away from labels all around. We use collaborative technology or collaborative software services delivery platform at State Street. That's something I've been a big part of. And I think that's helped us really blur those lines to get away from labels and allow people to be more creative. And it really embraces a diverse workforce, which is something that I know that Lou talked about in his speech for State Street. A big focus for us.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Anyone else? Gary, any thoughts on that?
You know, we're doing all the things that other companies are doing in terms of recruiting and training and having different programs. But, you know, I will often tell people, I've got daughters who are millennials. I tell people, if you want to be a good developer and leader of people, be a parent. If you want to be a great developer and leader of people, be a parent of twins. and not that I'm looking to pat myself on the back, but if you want to be exceptional, have them be identical twins. What I find with millennials, and it's an important change for me, is that I have found that this generation is anxious. I came into the workforce hoping to have a job and then hoping to advance in my career. They come into the workforce with just an absolutely fantastic attitude that they expect to be in charge. They say somebody's got to be the CEO of this corporation. Why can't it be me? And I find that fantastic. What they want and what I might be able to give them, because they couldn't possibly have it, is 35 years of experience. And if I can talk with them as opposed to talking at them, because that's not what millennials don't want. They don't want people talking at them. They want them talking with them. If I can in some way transfer my 35 years of knowledge and experience to them in, say, 15 minutes, that's exactly what they want.
Yeah, please.
No. So I too have twins, and they use Tylenol. So we'll keep the.
They need contact lenses.
Yeah, it's much better apparently than ibuprofen. For kids, I think there's two issues with millennials that we're focusing on to make sure we fully engage. One is to make sure we have we give people the ability to communicate the way that they want to communicate to be productive. And so, like I said, we, like every financial service institution, going through a tremendous amount of change. When I was at McKinsey working on change across the board, the number one reason that companies fail in major change efforts is lack of communication and lack of engagement. And that lack of communication is usually by a factor of 10. So it's not just, they don't communicate twice as much as they should. They 10 times under-communicate. And so we're, trying everything from, very robust, chat rooms, social media, workplace flexibility, making sure that, it's not just people sending emails and everybody inviting people to meetings, because people work differently. And then second is exactly what was said before, which is a lot of big corporations are pretty hierarchical, and especially in a highly regulated institution, you need to have a set of controls, and those are all very important. But to engage millennials and give people the opportunity, the younger people in the workplace, to actually make changes, improve their unit, come with breakthrough ideas. We got a whole set of programs around that, and we're finding some of the best ideas and some of the best new innovations and products are coming not from sitting around in our executive suite and our strategy planning offices, but by engaging and empowering people to really drive change, deeper in the organization.
Yeah, Carl?
If I could add to that too, we are in the process of constructing a brand new skyscraper in downtown Milwaukee, right in our campus, right in front of the Lake Michigan. And part of that process has been to ensure that this building is built for the next generation, not for the generation that is running the company. And so my organization is about 2,500 people, and I had to come to the conclusion and make the decision that we were not going to have private offices anymore that's based on hierarchy, that's based on who you are, which I have a feeling many of our companies still have those kinds of policies. And instead, we're going to have wide open, a view of the lake, everybody there, and I'm very happy to say that after a significant amount of pushback and after some, let's just say, some other senior leaders going, wait a minute, you're going to take my office? What about my privacy? Yeah. Well, you go use some of the private space that we're creating. So we're creating focus rooms. We're creating what we're calling backyards for 2 to 3 people to meet. We're creating team rooms. We're creating flexible space. In partnership with Microsoft, we're bringing in these new Surface hubs that allow you to collaborate in different ways. So there's a bunch of things that we're doing indeed to deal with this generation that's coming. And I have 2 at home. Now, I didn't realize millennials had a cutoff at 95. So they were born after 95. They're 18 and 16. I just got a text a little bit ago. They're on Madison Avenue spending my money. I don't like that, but okay. But indeed, it is important that the work space, the tools that you talked about in terms of technology, and the actual physical space reflects the way that people expect to work in the future.
Yeah. And for all of those that raise their hands that are in that millennial generation, hopefully as you hear this, you can see, and you're excited for the fact that we're listening to you, all of us. I can tell you, Deloitte, the way we develop our training programs is completely changing. It's hands-on. It's gamification of a lot of our training methods because we know that that's what the new generation relates to. So for all of you, you've got great opportunities at any of these firms up here on stage. So
who would have known that getting a badge would be a cool thing?
Yeah.
Earning a badge.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna switch to technology. So Carl and Tom, you both lead information technology businesses within your organization. So can you talk about, there's a lot of conversation about STEM talent, and one of the things, Charlie, I meant to applaud you on earlier is when you expanded the focus on ALPFA to not just be about finance and accounting, but for all Latinos and Latinas for America. It's a great opportunity, and it's something that we all need to make sure that our STEM talent, as well as finance and accounting and other disciplines are supported. So can you talk to what your organizations are doing to attract more Hispanic STEM talent to your organizations? Carl, Tom?
I can start, sure. At State Street, like I said, we have a very strong focus on diversification. We have metrics that all managers get tracked on. The problem is that, the level of talent available in the market. But I have seen a shift, I think, that's going to benefit all diversity at State Street and new talent coming in. In the past, technology has been moving, the past 10 years, it's been moving offshore. So development has been transitioned to offshore teams. So the young talent has been, or the work for the past younger generations has been shipped offshore, and it's been managed by more senior managers. And that's created a bit of a problem because there's no experienced people to move up through the ranks in the technology division, and for the most part, technical managers come up through technical backgrounds. That's changing. So like I talked about before, we have this collaborative software delivery process that we use at State Street. It's agile. It's something I feel very strongly about and have helped develop at State Street. We're using that globally. It's something that Google, Microsoft, Apple have been using for years, but it's moving into financial services, and it's moving into a lot of large organizations. And that's bringing talent back on shore. It's using smaller teams. It's using full-time employees co-located with their customers. For us, that's the business or our clients. Sitting together, like Carl said, in open spaces. We have stand-up desks. We have all these innovative ways to have people collaborate and work. And that's attracting the talent, but it's also providing opportunity for us to bring in a diversified workforce because it really embraces diversification. It's an environment that is, people are more productive with a diversified team. So it's something that we're doing. It's helping us attract more talent because it's innovative, it's exciting for the millennials, as well as Generation X and all the other generations beyond. But it's definitely something that's making a change for us and helping us to attract that talent. Because we have the priority to get the talent and the interest. It's a matter of us being able to attract it. And I think we've really bridged that gap.
Great. Carl?
Yeah, so, I think traditionally Latino culture, in particular when you talk about incomes that are middle income and below, you have a situation where doctors, lawyers are the traditional careers that those parents would look to their children to go into. And technology would not be the sexy place to go, in particular with the movement of outsourcing that occurred through the 90s. Add to that school counselors that, and I experienced this myself in the school where my kids go to school, telling them, no, you don't want to get into STEM because many of those careers are being outsourced to China and India, and you want to pick something that's going to be here in America. And that just turned my stomach when I heard my kids telling me that, hey, Dad, do you outsource? And I just kind of went, what? Because they heard it at school. So I have changed my approach in terms of where to start changing the mindsets of talent. And to me, and having a couple of teenagers, they got the mind of their own, and they got attitudes, and they got their own choices, and all that stuff. But when you go to 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, it is at that point where those opinions and those feelings and that do I want to be a geek? And it's geeky. And you even see the commercials, and the commercials don't represent those children, in particular girls.
Yeah.
So we've taken an approach of going into middle schools. I sit on the board of Discovery World in Milwaukee, which is a science museum. And indeed, we shifted the demographic to go younger, because at that age, they'll listen to an adult. They'll listen to the coaching. When they get to teenagers, they already have an opinion, and it's hard to change that, to get into technology.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, you want a career that will last forever? Get into cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because the bad guys are not going away, and it's an arms race. They do things, we have to protect ourselves. And it's a great place to be for technology for the rest of your career.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so we've got time for one more question for the group, so I'm going to throw this one out to all four of you. So if you could cite one thing that you could do, your organization could do to attract more Latino, Hispanic talent to your organization, what would that be? And after we finish this question, we'll open it up for questions from you all. So what would that be if you could cite one thing? Who wants to start? Doug, you want to start?
I'm happy to. I mean, I think what we need to do is, one, be very visible in the community. Two, be very intentional about what we do. I think we right now are doing succession planning at the highest levels, and we have a ready now bench, we have a 1 to 3 year bench, and we have a 5-year bench. The only way to drive diverse leadership over time, even if traditionally you haven't had as diverse a bench as you want ready now, you need to say, we're putting people in the 5-year bench who we're going to groom for leadership positions. And so I think we need to be out and about in the community doing, recruiting, engaging, letting people know what a great place it is to work. And then second is we need to make sure we have visible, diverse, leaders in our organization.
Yeah. Okay. Gary?
Yeah, I think what we can do as a company, and I think what we can all do as individuals, is not allow people to be invisible. I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to do a TED Talk, and it centered around diversity, although it wasn't really very overt. And I talked about a number of things that happened in my life, and it kind of culminated in the opening words to a book that I heard on a radio one day that I was driving. It was by an author named Ralph Ellison. He wrote one book in his life. It won, I believe, a Pulitzer Prize. Had another book released posthumously. And the opening of the book said, "I am an invisible man. No, I'm not a spook like those who haunted Edgar Allan Poe, nor am I one of your Hollywood movie ectoplasms. I'm a man of substance, fiber, and flesh and bone, and I might even possess a brain. I'm invisible, understand, because people simply refuse to see me. Like the bodiless heads you sometimes see in circus sideshows, it's as though I'm surrounded by mirrors of hard, distorting glass. When they look at me, they see their surroundings, indeed everything and everything except me." And when I heard those words, it made me think of all the times that I had felt invisible. Much like John Brennan, growing up in a blue-collar family in New York City. How many people had not seen or cared what my story was all about? But more importantly, not only did I understand my feelings, but I had to admit how many times had I made other people in my lifetime feel invisible. And not only people at work, but friends, people around a dinner table at your own home. So I vowed, and if everybody in this room can vow, and if everybody in every company can vow, don't let people be invisible. See them for what they are, see them for what they could be, we'd be a hell of a better country, we'd be a hell of a better world.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Carl, you want to follow up on that one?
Yeah, so I'll keep it simple. What I will tell you to do is to be a disruptor in this space. Don't let the status quo, the lack of risk-taking, the number counting, don't let that get in the way.
Yeah.
Take a stand. So all of our companies have had leadership development programs, rotational programs, mentorship programs, all kinds of other things like that, right? To develop leaders. I'm a firm believer that while all those things work, you really need to put your arms around one person, two people, and sponsor them. Not just mentor them, sponsor them. Take an active role in ensuring that that person can move through the ranks. And in Latino culture, there is, growing up Latino, I can tell you there's a great amount of respect for the elderly and for authority. IBM did a study where they realized that Latinos rose to middle management quicker than others. Hard workers, keep your head down, good work ethic, all those things. But then they kind of got stuck in middle management. The number one reason they cited why they got stuck in middle management was this notion of respect for authority, and that Latinos didn't speak up when they were surrounded by executive leaderships in their rooms, and therefore they were invisible. And I'm here to tell you that if there's one skill you as a student or even professionals that you need to hone in on, is your ability to have managerial courage and speak up.
Thank you. Thank you.
So for us at State Street, I think the focus has been getting new ideas around recruiting, because the talent is out there. We see that the Latino population is attending or getting technical degrees. That's the area I'm focused in, is technical recruiting. We have a program at State Street that is called Future Leadership, and I'm part of that. And we get to meet with the CIO and the CEO and bring out ideas. A lot of it's about recruiting talent. A lot of it's about diversification and of our staff. And I think the focus for us is things like social media, finding new ways to recruit talent, innovative ways to recruit talent. Because I think the old ways of looking at online application and using automation is leaving a lot of interesting candidates behind, and we understand that. So that's been our mission. I think it's going to pay off for us.
Okay, great, great. Well, thank you, panelists. So I think we've got just a few minutes, if we can up the lights and see if there's any questions or comments from the audience. So, yes, please, and please step up to a mic if you could.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Francisco Cruz, and I just want to start off by saying all of your insights have been remarkable. I especially want to direct my attention to Mr. Tom. Sorry, I'm just a little nervous. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Governor, I'm a computer information major, and I was just wondering if you can give me the key to bridging both gaps, being in the finance and in the IT world.
I'll start. I mean, I think the biggest thing to be successful in technology, certainly having technical experience. I know you gain that through work and through schooling, but communication is critical. So being able to bridge that gap between the business and the technology will make you irreplaceable. And all the leaders I've seen throughout my career, not only at State Street, but at dot-coms and consulting companies that I've worked at in the past, the most successful people are the ones that can communicate, that can understand the need from the business and change the story about the technical solution so that they understand and be able to deliver that message. So the fact that you're standing up and asking this question is a very good sign because you're confident, but I think communication is critical.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So, in my view, and we look at 3 key pillars for a good IT professional. Number 1, you got to have the fundamentals of IT. You got to have that. Okay, you got to code. You got to sling some code, and you got to make things happen on the screen. Okay. Number 2, you got to have the business skills. You got to understand the business. And in fact, I would encourage you to tweak the words of the business and instead use our business, your business. When you get invested in your business with your business partners, they're going to feel it like you're all in with them as opposed to this IT guy that's coming around to help us out. But the third, and I'm going to second what you said, the third and probably most important pillar of these three that I talked about, IT and business, is interpersonal skills. And so you talked about communication. I'll talk about negotiation. I talked a little bit ago about managerial courage. Mm-hmm. And there's many other competencies that are in your interpersonal skill. Interpersonal savvy is another one. You got to start honing in on several of those and just pick one or two every year that you're going to work on and develop, and find yourself somebody out there that's going to give you feedback on those particular things to make you better.
Thank you. I will definitely look into that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi. I'm kind of nervous, but I have a really good question.
You need to hold the mic up.
Yeah. I'm kind of nervous. And this might happen, but I want Gary to share your 35 years of experience. And what do you think companies lose if they don't see they leave the good talent invisible? What do you think that, what do they lose? I really want to know.
Sure. I think she just called me old, by the way.
Yeah, she did, but no worries.
This will sound a little bit Pollyanna, but what they lose is they lose the future. Kelvin, in his comments before, talked about Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 100 companies. You take a look back over a 20-year period, companies go extinct. They fall out of the 100 or the 500. They go bankrupt. Mostly they get eaten up. Businesses are like the dinosaurs, and those who refuse, even for the best of intentions, to not be willing to listen what's going on and evolve into the future, we know what their fate is. If I am wise at all, and I'll give it all to my daughters, it's that I'm smart enough to know that their generation will take over the world, because one, I'll retire, and two, I'm not going to live forever. So their generation is in fact going to take over the world. I need to be smart enough to listen to them and to give to them what I can possibly have to make sure that they've got the best of mine, coupled with the tremendous difference in access of information and intelligence they have growing up in a computer world, to make them successful in the future.
Let's thank our panelists.
All right.
For this great
Thank you.